I recently realized that you can see the guitar neck into two sections. And although you can play the same notes in both sections, they each have their very unique role and importance. And that's because when it comes to guitar, not all frets are equal. Hey, my name is David. I've been teaching guitar for over 30 years, and there's one thing that I've never really talked about, and it has to do with the reason why sometimes you might play a lick, it works great. The next day, you play the same exact lick, and it just doesn't work. Now, it has nothing to do with the actual lick, choice of notes, or the way you're playing it, but it has everything to do with the concept of brightness and darkness. It's one of those things that makes a massive difference in your playing once you reach a certain phase. By the end of this video, you're going to have a really good understanding of what that concept is, how to use it. It's a very quick fix, and it makes a big difference, especially if you're at a point in your playing where you can already improvise a little bit, you know, a few licks. This is really going to set your playing apart from where you are now in a better way. So we're going to do this in 3 phases. The first part, I'm going to get you really familiar and comfortable with hearing the difference between a bright lick and a dark lick. And then we're going to understand when to brighten up a lick and when to darken a lick. And at the end, I'm going to show you exactly how to brighten up or darken the lick. So when you look at your guitar, you can kind of split it into 2 segments. Anything below the 5th fret is going to be one segment, and anything above the 5th fret is going to be the second. This has to do with the nature, the physical nature of the guitar, the length of the string. Basically, anything below the 5th fret is going to have a brighter tone. Anything above, closer to the bridge, is going to have a darker tone. Now, this is where a lot of players get it wrong, and I understand why. Oftentimes, we think that high-pitched notes equal bright notes. And when I say bright, I'm talking about the EQ. There's more brightness that is coming out. It's the contrary on guitar. Let me demonstrate. So as you know, on the guitar, we can play the same exact pitch in different areas of the fretboard. Let's take this A, for example, on the 6th string, 17th fret. That pitch can also be played on the 5th string, 12th fret. It could also be played on the 4th string, 7th fret. And it can also be played on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. As I'm playing these pitches, I'm actually going from dark to bright. Now, if I compare the 2 last ones, the first one here being the darkest, and the next one. So it has nothing to do with the pitch, everything to do with the EQ and the frequencies that are brought out. Anything below the 5th fret, more frequencies. It's going to be brighter. Anything above, a little bit darker. It's subtle, but again, if we compare both, kind of dark, not much overtones. You can almost hear those harmonics coming out on that 3rd string, 2nd fret. This becomes even more apparent when we're comparing 2 melodic ideas instead of a single note. I'm going to play a first one in the dark zone of the fretboard, which was anything above 5th fret, and I'll play the same exact musical idea with the same pitches, but I'll play the brighter version. Check this out. Same idea, bright. In music, when you want something to stand out, or when you want something to work, be pleasant, be more harmonious, you want to have contrast. And it happens all across the board. If you have a backing track that is kind of slow pace, if you want to kind of stand out, make something that complements that, don't play the same thing. Play something a little faster paced. If you have a backing track that is kind of in the dark zone with darker instruments, not tons of frequencies, if you want to stand out, you're going to play bright. In the same way, if your backing track is made out of a lot of brighter instruments, maybe you have a bright acoustic guitar, you have some drums where the snare is tuned a little bit brightly, you're going to want to play dark. Now, it's okay if you can't hear right away if what you're playing over is dark or bright. Just be aware that if the thing you're playing over doesn't seem to work, even though the notes are correct, the rhythm is correct, you probably need to play the opposite in frequencies. In other words, if you're playing anything in this zone of the fretboard and it doesn't really work, you're playing dark, try to translate what you're playing here in the bright zone. And the opposite is true. If what you're playing here doesn't seem to work, you're playing bright, try to play it in the darker zone. All right, let's try this out. I've got a backing track here. We are in A minor, and I'm gonna use something that we've developed recently. It's a custom backing track player, and I'd love for you to try it out for free. There's a link below. It'll take you straight to that backing track. Let me show you how it works. When you open the backing track in this tool, you'll be presented with the full scale. In this case, we're in A minor, Aeolian. Below that, we have the full chord progression of the backing track. You can start wherever you want within the backing track, or you can even create some loops. Just drag and drop and create your loop, enable the loop option. There's a lot more you can do. I'll let you explore, but for now, I'm just gonna loop this particular section and I'm gonna start playing. Now we're gonna try to decide if what I'm playing sounds good or not. And if it doesn't, we're just gonna change from bright to dark or dark to bright. All right, I'm gonna start dark right here. Something simple. Okay. The notes work. I kind of like the idea, but I'm gonna try to brighten this up by playing the same exact note in the bright zone. Oh, you hear the difference? Very different, right? I really like the bright one, which kind of tells me that what I'm playing over is maybe in the darker zone. Doesn't really stand out. This does. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, first of all, that's a lot of work to translate one idea from dark to bright and vice versa. And also, well, if you can't hear if what you're playing over is bright or dark right away, you're probably, with your luck, if you're like me, you're gonna play in the wrong area of the fretboard. And the first musical statement you're gonna play is not going to stand out. In other words, you're gonna play a bright over bright or dark over dark. Well, we don't have to do it that way. See, there's a better way to approach this, and that's to kind of automatically blend in some dark notes with some bright notes. That by itself is it's gonna make it work. In other words, you don't have to play just bright notes over a dark backing track. As long as you have a few that stand out, that's the most important thing. It's still going to stand out. Plus, it's going to add a lot of character to what you're playing. Check this out. There's actually a way to make notes in the dark zone brighter than they are without having to completely switch zones, and vice versa, and it has to do with the pick. The best way to work on this is at low volume. So if you're playing through an amp, turn your amp low enough so that you can hear your guitar strings vibrate, not just through the amp, but on their own. So I'm gonna lower my volume here, and when I'm picking, I'm hearing the note come out of my amp, but I'm also hearing my guitar string resonate. You really need to do it at a low volume. I'm actually a little too high here. And that's gonna help you hear exactly what the string is doing. So let's pick a single note. We're gonna pick this note right here on the 3rd string, 5th fret. If I play this note with my pick, just normal way, that's what it sounds like. I'm gonna play the same note with my index finger. You hear it like kind of like snaps. It's brighter than with a pick. So we need to ask ourselves, so what is making this note brighter when I'm playing with my finger, my index in this case? And here's a hint. It's not the material that you're picking with. It's not the plastic of the pick. It's not the flesh of your finger. It has to do with the strength. So how can we replicate the strength that you would have by snapping the string with your index with your pick? There's several ways, and you kind of have to explore that. But for me, if I dig into the string a little bit more pick inside of the string, almost like I'm bending the string, and I release it, I get this kind of like snappy effect that I would get with my index. So the goal here, as you're practicing this, is to play a note with a pick and a note with the index and try to have it sound exactly the same. The way that you attack with your pick to get that sound is going to be different than what you would play if you're trying to play fast. There's a little bit less of my pick coming out here. Also, you can darken a note by muting it a little bit. And typically that's going to be done with the palm of the right hand. So my palm of the right hand is kind of resting on these strings. I'm playing my notes kind of softly. This kind of darkens up the notes. And even if I'm playing in the bright zone, I can kind of darken by almost tampering that note to come out. I don't want it to ring too much. If I play normally, that's bright. And I'm making it darker. So I'm going to try to vary my ideas, vary my pick attack to try to influence the way that I'm playing, dark, bright, with just the pick, which means that I could play in any area of the fretboard that I'm comfortable with. Let's give that a try. Here we go. That is bright there. Trying to darken that note, and then bright, brighter, dark. Again, my volume is really low so I can hear the attack of my pick. That is quite bright here, even though I'm in the dark zone. I really want you to try this. Click right here to access the same exact backing track I was using. You don't need to sign up, nothing. Just click right here and it'll take you straight to this backing track player. Give it a try. I think you're going to love it. Have fun with this. Practice well.